Two ancient civilizations unimaginably far apart, yet something connects them. For almost 2 decades now, I've been observing some extraordinary similarities between the Aboriginal Australians and the Sanatan or Hindu rituals and ideas. Good day, namaste, I'm Mitra Desai and you're watching or listening to The Mitra Desai Show. Bharat is my Janmabhoomi and Australia my Karmabhoomi. Two places that are so far away from each other, literally oceans apart. So it's hard for us to think that there would be any similarities in their core cultures. I mean, think about it. When you think of India, Australia, our mind goes straight to the cricket matches. Or when we think of just Australia, we can visualize the opera house or the beautiful beaches, the kangaroos and cuddly koalas, and also poisonous snakes. When Aussies think of India, we have the usual stereotypes of cows sitting on the highways or amazing food and the song and dance of Bollywood. But do you know that just like Bharat, Australia is home to one of the world's oldest continuing cultures? That's right, I'm talking about the Aboriginal Australian culture. They have lived here for over 65,000 years. They have maintained spiritual traditions and a continuous culture for that long. I mean, we're talking about a civilizational continuity that has survived ice ages and even changing continents. Aboriginal Australia contains hundreds of distinct cultural groups, each with their own language and customs. They have deep knowledge of the land, sophisticated astronomical understanding, and complex spiritual practices just like Bharat. Today, I'm sharing 4 of the many remarkable parallels that I have observed over the decades, and one surprising difference at the end. Now picture this, the sun rising over the sacred Uluru. Uluru is a massive red sandstone monolith rising 348 meters from the desert heart of Australia. But calling Uluru just a rock formation is like calling Ganga just another river. Now we all know from the Puranic stories of how Gangaji was a force so powerful that Sakshat Shivji had to make way for her to flow through his matted locks. Today, she remains Ma Ganga for us, the mother of a grand civilization. For Aboriginal people, particularly the Anangu traditional owners, Uluru holds similar reverence. It is a living library of sacred knowledge. An Anangu elder will tell you that every groove, every cave, every waterhole here tells a story from the dream time. And these aren't just stories, they are their laws, their science, and their history. You see, both Hindu and Aboriginal traditional practices honor the landscape as sacred. Every mountain has meaning, every river carries stories. In Bharat, we have Tirtha Kshetras, which have elevated the vibrations of that sacred space to the next level. We also have Sthala Puran or Sthala Mahatmya, which tell us the stories and importance of those particular holy places. So this is our first similarity, that the land is not just a resource to be exploited, the land itself is sacred. Now the second similarity is quite unique and remarkable. Hindus circumambulate sacred spaces. We perform what's called a pradakshina around a temple or parikrama around sacred sites. So pradakshina literally means to the right in Sanskrit. It involves clockwise circumambulation around a deity, a shrine, or a sacred object. Parikrama refers to the path along which circumambulation is performed. Now, this can involve large-scale circumambulation, such as around an entire temple or sacred sites, and this is usually associated with pilgrimages or tirthayatras. But you know what? So do the Aboriginal Australians. In fact, the Anangu people perform ceremonial walkabouts around specific parts of Uluru, or even around the entire formation. Each path holds different teachings, different songs, and even different responsibilities. This is one of the most sacred sites. In fact, so sacred that in 2019, visitors were banned from climbing Ayers Rock. Uluru. That's right. It was previously called Ayers Rock by European colonizers, just like Nala Setu has been called Adam's Bridge for so long. It returned to its original Aboriginal name, Uluru, only in 1993. If you'd like to know more about why people were climbing this sacred site in the first instance and how it came to be banned, leave me a comment and I'll do a video about it. So our second important connection is the parikrama practice. The physical landscape is just the beginning. What I've discovered about both traditions' understanding of sacred time is just as fascinating. It's called the dream time or the dreaming. Dream time, also known as the dreaming, is a fundamental concept in Australian Aboriginal culture. It explains the creation of the world and the origins of life. The dream time is not a historical era that has passed. It is happening right now all around us. So imagine a dimension where the past, present, and the future exist simultaneously. Aboriginal elders will tell you that this eternal realm isn't just a story. It's a living reality that shapes everything we see. Now, this understanding of time, creation, and multiverses is nothing new from a Hindu perspective. Just as Aboriginal Dreamtime beings shape the land through their eternal actions, Hindu deities exist in a state of constant creation, manifestation, and transformation. So, our third similarity is this deep understanding of the cycles of time and creation itself. Bringing together the Dreamtime and these sacred spaces requires more than just visiting them. It requires something that both traditions have preserved carefully, and that is our fourth connection, the power of the spoken word. Think about this. In a world obsessed with written records, both traditions chose to preserve their most sacred knowledge through sound and memory. But why? I remember an Aboriginal elder once saying, "Our stories must be spoken to stay alive." I recently visited a Bora ring. Now, a Bora ring is a sacred Aboriginal site used for initiation ceremonies. These sites typically consist of two circular areas. There's a larger circle, usually 20-30 meters in diameter, which is used as a public space. And there's a smaller circle, which is about 10-15 meters in diameter. Usually, this is the place where only initiates and male elders can enter. Now, these circles are connected by a pathway often called the Sacred Way. Bora rings were primarily used for initiation ceremonies where young boys between, say, 12 to 15 years transitioned into manhood. During these ceremonies, these initiates learned their sacred songs, stories, dances, and traditional lores. So back to the Bora ring that I recently visited. At the center of it was a signpost which simply said, "Now silent." Imagine a sacred circle where for thousands of years, young people have learned their culture through song and dance has become silent. The muted Bora ring serves as a poignant reminder of the havoc brought on by colonization. So far, we have seen what both these amazing civilizations share in terms of similarities. I will end with one critical difference. But before we do that, I'd like to make a personal request. If you're intrigued by these connections between ancient cultures and are eager to explore more, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your subscription means more than just a number. It's an invitation for all of us to create a community of curious minds. Together, we'll embark on a journey of discovery, connect dots across civilizations, and reconnect with our itihas and history. I'm passionate about sharing these stories, and I'm looking to connect with kindred spirits who are on the same journey. Now back to the Bora ring. Although these rings have become muted, Bharat has managed to keep its oral traditions alive and unbroken. The Vedic Smritis play a crucial role in retaining and transmitting knowledge within the Hindu tradition. Smriti literally means that which is remembered, and it refers to a body of text that complement the Shrutis, which are revealed knowledge of the Vedas. Na choraharyam, na cha rajaharyam, na bhratrubhajyam, na cha bharakari. Vyayai krute vardhat eva, nityam vidyadhanam sarvadhana pradhanam. It literally means that knowledge can neither be stolen nor seized, but it can be shared. In fact, the more you use it, the more it grows, and it brings lasting prosperity. Knowledge is the greatest treasure of all. This was a principle that was clearly understood by our ancestors who brilliantly encoded critical information in sound and memory. The preservation of Smriti knowledge relies heavily on the Guru Shishya Parampara. This parampara to this day maintains an unbroken lineage of knowledge transmission. Here in Australia, 65,000 years of a civilization were wiped out in just 200 years of colonization. Bharat, in contrast, tells a different story, where wave after wave of looters, plunderers, and colonizers have come and gone. Bharat is still standing, recovering from the plunder and finding its feet again. But it's still standing. We may not fully understand the powerful information our civilizational memory banks hold, but until we do, let's appreciate the fact that our ancestors and gurus have kept it alive against incredible odds. Let's make an effort to reconnect with our lineages and revive what we can. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here today.